So today in World War I, we're going to take a look at the government excess and threats to U.S. civil liberties. First, starting with the Espionage Act of 1917, this is going to forbade the actions that obstructed recruitment or efforts to promote insubordination within the military. They're going to order the Postmaster General to remove any leftist materials from the mail, and they're going to give fines of up to $10,000 and or up to 20 years in prison. The Sedition Act of 1918 will make it a crime to speak against the purchase of war bonds or willfully utter, print, write, or publish any disloyal, profane, scurrilous, or abusive language about this form of U.S. government, the U.S. Constitution, or the U.S. Armed Forces, or to willfully urge, incite, or advocate any curtailment of production of things necessary or essential to the prosecution of the war, with intent of such curtailment to cripple or hinder the U.S. in the prosecution of the war. So essentially both the Espionage and the Sedition Acts are essentially going against those people who are being outspoken and going against our involvement in World War I. Schneck versus the U.S. in 1919. In ordinary times, the mailing of the leaflets would have been protected by the First Amendment. And when we're referring to leaflets, in today's world, we would call it junk mail that we might receive in our mailboxes. So this is propaganda that's being passed out or handed out or mailed out, speaking out against the U.S. involvement in World War I. And most people at this time believed that these leaflets were a part of the First Amendment, but every act of speech must be judged accordingly to the circumstances in which it was spoken. So the most stringent protection of free speech would not protect a man in falsely shouting fire in a theater and causing a panic. If an act of speech posed a clear and present danger, then the Congress had the power to then restrain such speech. The Council of National Defense, the War Industries Board, which is led by Bernard Baruch, the Food Administration, created by Herbert Hoover, the Railroad Administration, William McAdoo is in charge of that, and the National War Labor Board is led by Taft and Walsh. All of these companies, boards, the sole purpose of these groupings is going to now figure out a way in which we can take the War Industry Board, Food Administration, the Railroad Administration, the National War Labor Board, and turn essentially all of their focal points of how can we use what we're involved in for the purpose of war. So for the U.S. Food Administration, they began creating propaganda posters for this one saying that the world cry food, keep the home garden going. World War I is the first wholehearted example of total war, in which case everything that the U.S. had was focused on war, from food, the amount of food that we grew or produced, a certain percentage of it would be sent to the war effort. Here's another: save sugar by using best Louisiana molasses and sugar cane syrup, because sugar was in high demand to ship over to the soldiers. For the National War Garden Commission, poster, what are you doing? The Kaiser is canned. This is for let's use canned food. Again, follow the Pied Piper, join the United States School Garden Army. Again, encouraging individuals, grow your own food to supply for your families. Anything in excess is going to be shipped over for the war effort. So what are some results of our newly organized economic system, in which case, again, everything now is focused towards the war effort? Well, number one, you're creating jobs. So unemployment in the U.S. is going to virtually disappear. The expansion of big government is going to take place, which means essentially that government no longer has a laissez-faire approach to the economic system, which means that they're going to be hands off and just let the economy come and go as it naturally might. They're going to be now hands-on and wanting to manipulate every single aspect of our economic system so that it can be pointed towards, how can we make it help the war. Excessive government regulations will be created for the economy as well, again, so that the government can control what is being produced, where it's being distributed to, how much it's being sold for. And whenever you have government getting involved, how they are, not everything is going to go good. There are going to be some gross mismanagement issues. You're going to have judges and officials essentially thinking that they are more powerful than what they actually are, and they're going to overstep their bounds in making decisions. There's going to be close cooperation between both the public and the private sectors, and there's going to be an unprecedented opportunity for disadvantaged groups to receive help. Opportunities for African Americans in World War I. First, you have the Great Migration from 1916 to 1919, in which case there's approximately 70,000 African Americans who will migrate from the South to the North, again, because of the huge surplus of jobs that are going to be now available. Most of those jobs are going to be focused on war industry type of work, making pots and pans, making vehicles of war, motorcycles, jeeps, making ammunition, guns, things of that nature. And of course, encouraging and allowing the African American to enlist in the war to fight on the side of the U.S. However, the units that they enlisted to were segregated units, which means, you had units that were fully comprised of all African Americans, all Caucasian. So here are just some propaganda posters, encouraging people to enlist and have African Americans take a greater role. Here's a picture of rescuing a Negro during the race riots of Chicago in 1919. The YWCA encouraging the blue triangle, back our girls over there. The YWCA is the women's version of the YMCA, which is predominantly for men. Same sort of deal. We want to provide jobs, help, education for women. Munitions work, again, a lot of the men are at war, so it's the job of the women to kind of step it up and to take the place of the men in the factories. Women are also used in recruitment. Gee, I wish I were a man, I'd join the Navy. That's something that's going to play on, male pride. If a woman would go to enlist, well, then a man definitely should. The Red Cross, the greatest mother in the world. Again, propaganda that we are to take care of not only ourselves, but the world as a whole. So the World War I era amendments. In 1919, the 18th Amendment is created, which is prohibition, because of the wartime spirit of self-denial and partly because of anti-Germanic sentiment. We want to do away with alcohol and liquor and make it illegal. In 1920, the 19th Amendment is passed, which is women's suffrage. Again, women gain the right to vote. A large portion or a large reason why that goes into play is because of the huge role that women played in World War I, at home in the U.S., really stepping up to play a huge part economically in the war. Workers and war. Not all workers were in support of the war. There were a lot of post-war labor unrest that was taking place, such as the coal miner strike of 1919, the steel strike of 1919 as well, and the Boston police strike of 1919. So this is just another good example of how our nation was divided. We were not all wholeheartedly 100% for our involvement in this war. Again, here's just a picture of a anti-labor, just saying if capital and labor don't pull together, this is what is going to happen to our nation. Everyone will be out of work and we're all going to become poor. Here's a propaganda or a political cartoon of the coal miner strike of 1919. Uncle Sam essentially spanking the worker and the labor union, saying, "I'm sick and tired of this nonsense." Again, another propaganda poster, says, "Enlist. On which side of the window are you? Are you a part of the military, or are you on the inside of your home looking out, seeing what others are doing?" In 1917, the Selective Service Act comes about. 24 million men would register for the draft by the end of 1918. 4,800,000 men would serve in World War I alone. 2 million saw active combat. Of those, 400,000 African Americans served in their individual segregated groups. 15,000 Native Americans served as scouts, messengers, and snipers in non-segregated units, and women served in non-combat positions as well, predominantly nurses, secretaries, things of that nature. Fighting the war, the U.S. is needed heavily in France after Russia pulls out of the war. We would play a key role in stopping the German invasion of France. At the Second Battle of the Marne, this would mark the point of German withdrawal from France in 1918. The end nears closer. Germany wanted to surrender in October of 1918 with a peace based upon Wilson's 14 points. The U.S., up until this point, we had mainly contributed food, munitions, money, oil, and manpower into the war. And there was a prospect of an endless American troop supply that really made the Germans want to think about laying down their arms. And that is where we will end it for today.